What up, everybody? Welcome to a glorious Thursday here at Coffee Hour. Glad to have you with me today here on Coffee Hour, spending your time early in the morning. If you're on the West Coast, it is really early. If you're on the East Coast, you're just getting up, getting that coffee rolling, getting the start to your day. Maybe you're heading to the job site. Maybe you're on the job site. Maybe you're in the meeting of a safety, in the middle of a safety meeting or something like that. Who knows? Maybe you're putting it on your phone and sharing it with everybody around going, dude, coffee hour's on. Stop what you're doing. Maybe that's what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing, but I know you're here with me. So thanks for joining me on Coffee Hour. Now, as always, I love hearing from everybody that joins us each week. We get more and more people find us each week and listen to the replays at 5 o'clock each day. And throughout the day, we have different videos that come up and things like that. But the real place to be is here at 8 a.m. Now, you do know we no longer do any videos or any streaming or anything to TikTok, so that's gone. But we are doing Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. We're on YouTube, multiple channels. Coffee Hour with Paul is one of our YouTube channels. Check that out. Subscribe to that, as well as Master the NEC channel. So thanks for joining us and getting your day started. Haters are welcome. If you want to be a hater, you're also welcome here. We want to teach you too, that type of thing. So hopefully you checked yesterday's video. If you didn't catch it live, you went back and watched it, where we were talking about cable trays and we were doing sizing. And we started out with clearly the more complicated aspect of sizing, or how to determine the size of a cable tray when we have two different conductor sizes. If you have, say, 900 kc mil down to 1/0, and then you have the 1000 kc mil and over, and they share a cable tray, and assuming they're, again, the same voltage classes, then, you know, there's this situation where we have to be able to make sure that we have adequate space in this cable tray. And we talked about ladder type of cable trays, solid with ventilated trough type of cable trays. We talked a little bit about that, and we gave some of the basics. So make sure you go back and watch part 1 to catch the basics. In case you're jumping in here and we've already talked about the basics, we're not going to go back over those type of things, talking about the rungs and the spacing and all that. We're not going to go back over that. But what we're going to do today is we're going to finish out the sizing parameters for single conductor cables where permitted. Okay, so you got to go watch that on part 1 because they're not permitted to have single insulated conductors or single conductor cables in every application of a cable tray. It was very specific to industrial establishments, and you have to work with your local AHJ to determine what is an industrial establishment. However, we did establish that cable trays can be used in many other applications that were not just industrial, like commercial, even in residential. The limitation is only when you're dealing with these single conductor cables or single insulated conductors. Then there's a limitation. If that confuses you, then you didn't watch part 1. You need to make sure you go back and watch part 1. It's available on our YouTube channel at Master the NEC. So you can go watch it there, and it will be available soon over on Fast Tracks Tube exclusive. Also, before we get started, this show is sponsored by Feed the Hog, which is the Trade Hog, the AI for tradesmen. Go check it out at tradehog.net. I think you'll find it's amazing. Also, don't forget, we have started a new quarter of Spin and Win. So make sure you put hashtag win in the comments for whatever platform you're watching on so that you can get in on the spin at the end of each show. And tomorrow, Friday, the 18th, we will have the winners video we'll be playing throughout the day. Okay, so we'll have our normal coffee hour in the morning, but then throughout the day, you'll have the what's called the winners video, and that'll give instructions for everybody that won in the first quarter drawing. Okay, so that's where you'll get your instructions. So look for that. Make sure you watch it. And tomorrow, we will be transitioning into talking about ampacities of conductors and cable trays. Okay, so today, we are very much going to try to focus on the rest of single insulated conductors and single conductor cables. Today, we're going to try to cover the cables itself when it comes to spacing today. All right, so we'll be really focused on 392.22a and b today. Okay, finishing up B, which is going to be easy, and then we'll kick into A, and it should be fairly easy there as well. Guys, we'll just clarify some nuances and things like that. Now, Before we do all that, we do, as always, want to give some shout outs to folks that join us here on Coffee Hour every week. And so we want to do those welcomes and let you know who you are and where you're from. So let's see, let's get into it. Brandon, glad to have you here down in Houston, Texas. Talked to Brandon again yesterday on the phone, really studying for his exam. Jonathan, good morning. Good morning to all of our brothers and sisters out there. Jonathan is in southern Tennessee. Let's see here. What do we got? Good morning. Frank the Great's in the house. Good morning, Frank. Glad to have you here. Tino H is in the house. Good morning. It is a great day to be an electrician. Always a great day to get up. I mean, what's the alternative? You could be a plumber. I'm just saying. Let's see here. Adam is in the house. Because the plumbers, they're only one job away from working in crap. I mean, electricians don't do that. You know, a plumber can have a great day, but he's always just one job away from digging in a cesspool. All right, let's see here. What do we got here? Good morning, Charlie. Glad to have you here. Hope everything's going good with the family. I see Paul setting the tone today. Paul with the hashtag win, watching over on Fast Tracks Tube. Thank you, sir. Glad to have you here. Good morning, Paul. Wanted to make sure we got that up there as well. It's almost Friday. Absolutely. Easter weekend. Okay. He will rise again. There you go. David Scott, glad to have you here. Marlon, glad to have you here, my friend. Welcome. Rob Nickman over on the tube. Glad to have you here, Rob. Also, for those that ask, over on Fast Tracks Tube, we made it a little easier. I asked Jeff to do this. Up in the navigation, it now says Coffee Hour. Before it just said live shows and, webinars, and it was confusing for people. It basically is Coffee Hour, and then the webinar is for when the link on there for the webinar, that is when we do exclusive webinars and they live stream, and so they're not open to the public. So when we do announce one of those, that's where that link will work. Other than that, it won't work until then, just so anybody asks about what that is. What's up, Nepo? Thanks for joining us. Good morning, Christopher. Glad to have you here. My mic is a bit in the way for me here. Let's see here. Adrian, happy Thursday. Glad to have you here. Rob is in the house. Rob, good morning. Glad to have you here. We got a lot of hashtags going in. Good morning, new place. Your happy place. There's my plumber. Okay, I already started with the plumber jokes this morning, but there you go. See, this plumber wants to realize that you got to get out of the crap. It's time to become an electrician and step up to the plate. I'm just saying. All right, let's see here. Jonathan, indeed, the hog is hungry. If y'all got any questions you'd like me to feed into the trade hog, let me know. I'm more than happy to feed it in. We'll see what comes out of the hog. Good morning, Greg. Welcome. Erie, good morning. Fast Track student. Hashtag win. Glad to have you here. Manny's in the house. Welcome, Manny, with his green code nerd on. Glad to have you here. What's up, Peter? Glad to have you, Peter. Let's see here. What do we got here? A new face here. What is that? Sabri Vibes? Sabri? Is that it? Best I can do? From Miami. Glad to have you here. Let's see. Sparky Forever. That's what I'm talking about. Sparky Forever. That's Sparky for life. There you go. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Let's see here. Jonathan's trying different platforms. That's cool. Yeah, I can, if I post something, it actually posts on all the platforms, right? So yeah, try them out. See which one you like the best. We are on Facebook, Master the NEC. Some of you might see that we changed the forum for exam prep to Coffee Hour and exam prep. So it's just basically a private group. If you're interested in joining that group, just go over and look for the group under Facebook, Coffee Hour with Paul. Go check that out. Let's see here. Red Dog is in the house. Can you talk about the 80% rule for overcurrent protection devices? There's really no 80% rule. It's basically, if it's a continuous load, then you can't, a normal circuit breaker is not rated for continuous loads. They're typically rated. So what you do is you use 80% or you use the 125. So they're reciprocal. So if I happen to want to know what a standard overcurrent device is rated for under continuous load, because if it's a 20 amp breaker, it's good for 20 amps, right? There's no rule. It's good for 20 amps. Now, if I'm going to put a continuous load on that breaker, then basically I take that, whatever the rating is of that breaker, and I multiply it by 125%. Now, if I happen to know what the load is, even if I call it a continuous load, I know what the load is. Let's say it's 35 amps of continuous load. Then when I'm sizing the overcurrent device in 210.20, then I'm going to take that actual load and I'm going to multiply that, okay, by 125%, okay? So again, if I have, I probably said that backwards earlier. If I know the overcurrent device, then I'm going to multiply that by 80%, okay, because that's the reciprocal. I'll show you how that works. I probably said that wrong. It's early for my coffee. Also, by the way, that tells me you have not watched Derating Demystified video. You have not watched it if you have to ask questions about the 80%, how that works, okay? So let's say I have a 30 amp breaker. Let's just use numbers. Oops, there's the old trusted Casio right there, 30 amps. So it's a 30 amp overcurrent device. I multiply that by 0.80. That's 24 amps. So I can't put more than 24 amps of continuous load. So whether it's a load that runs for 3 hours or more at maximum output as defined in Article 100, or if it's something in the code that says treat something at 125% or as a continuous load. So in other words, a 30 amp breaker, I can't load more than 24 amps. And you say, well, how do I know that? Well, what if I had 24 amps of continuous load? Then I take that 24, okay, multiply that by 1.25, and miraculously that equals 30, right? So it is the reciprocal. So when you want to know what the maximum amount of continuous load that you can put on a circuit breaker, then you take the rating of the circuit breaker and multiply it by 80%. If you have an actual continuous load, or you know what the load is, then you take that actual load, whatever it is, and you multiply that by 125%. You size the overcurrent device and you size the conductor based on that. Does that make sense? That is really dealing with it in a nutshell. I have to make sure, because I think earlier at the beginning I was said something about 120. No, you take the breaker at 80%, you take the actual load at 125% when it's a continuous load. And that's reciprocal. Does that make sense? You catch me early with the coffee. All right, let's see. Good morning, Edward. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Let's see. Good morning. Anselmo Caro? Did I say that right? Anyway, good morning. Glad to have you here. David Giron. Hopefully your inspection went well yesterday at your hazardous whatever location it was. So again, over on the Fast Tracks Tube, a lot more people are following over on the tube. I love it. I love it. Good. One thing I will tell you that's easy, but I told somebody, I think I told yesterday, was there is something that's easy about this. So guys, we always try to make your life easy, and I'm not selling anything, okay? The mobile app that we have available on our website is free. I just wanted to show you real quick. If you click on it, oh, wait a minute, that's the Trade Hog app. Sorry about that. If I click on the app for ours, you see right here where it says Coffee Hour right there? Dude, make your life easier. Right there. Right there. You're watching from your phone. There you go. There's me right there. And you can actually full screen it, right? So if I turn it to the side, there it is right there. And you can watch it directly from here. So again, we try to make life as easy as possible. Our mobile app is designed to just make life easier for you. That's all we're doing with it. We're not trying to sell you anything. In fact, if you don't even subscribe to our products or buy our products, you still use the mobile app. One, you don't have to watch me on Coffee Hour if you don't want. I love having you here. But we have some calculators on there. We have some neat stuff. And you never know when you're going to get in a bind. And you have that chat feature that you can chat out and send a chat to all the other members that are on the mobile app. And you can ask a question or something like that. So, but between the calculators, and you can get to the blogs with one click, we're not trying to sell you anything. Now, if you want our courses, that's great, but we're not trying to sell you. It's convenience. As an electrician in the field, I love the thought of having it right there at my fingertips. It's just me. You may agree, you may disagree. Okay. But again, I'm not twisting your arm. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's see here. Adam, pint of coffee, coffee 1.5. It could take that long today, Adam. It smells like money to me. You know what? You know what? All jokes aside, you're absolutely right. Shit's not going to kill you. Really, it's not. It's making you money. So, hey, you're absolutely right. It smells like money. That, my friend, is the positive spin, and it is so true, and I love it. This was going to make you excel in electrical as well because of that positive attitude. It smells like money. That's what I'm talking about. And if you're doing the septics and you're just sucking it out and you got a machine, just like cha-ching, hey, it's beautiful. Let's see. I switched between Fast Tracks Tube and MTNEC on YouTube. There you go. Let's see. Good morning, Edgar. Thanks for joining us. What a see. TS have been installing Trey all week, learning new stuff. There you go. All right, so there you go. So again, remember, #win, shout outs. Let me know who you are, where you're from, what you're doing, what you got going on. Anything, questions you want to ask, just like it was asked about the 80 for the continuous load thing. Hopefully that explained it to you. I can't remember who asked it, but hopefully explain it. Brandon says, what's the difference between a panel board and enclosed panel board from Article 100? So a panel board is actually the guts that go inside of an enclosure or cabinet, whereas you can get an entire assembly where the panel board's already installed inside of an enclosure, so that creates the whole assembly. So panel board in itself is just the guts. That's it, okay? It's just the guts. Panel boards get mounted into cabinets and into enclosures, okay? Typically, the panel boards typically don't get installed into boxes. It's usually cabinets or enclosures. But again, I'm not going to rule it out. Some people will write a funky question or exam question may come out funky, and they may say box, and they know they're using slang. They know they're using enclosure, or they know it's a cabinet, but they may use the term box. You have to be able to discern that based on the answers in the question, what they're talking about, that type of thing. But this should be something that your electrical educator or whoever you're learning from or whatever it is should be able to explain to you. And if you look at the definition in Article 100, it should be pretty clear. But I want to distinguish the fact that a panel board in itself is something that devices mount onto, right? And so overcurrent devices mount onto a panel board, and it goes inside of a cabinet enclosure. And the reason for that also is because the manufacturers are the ones that are going to dictate things like 312.6 when it comes to routing of conductors and space between where it enters into the cabinet and terminates into an overcurrent device. We have to make sure we have enough clearance because those conductors don't bend that easy, especially when they get larger in size. So when a manufacturer creates a load center, right, or we'll call it we tend to call panel boards same as load centers. I mean, as far as slang, right? We say, hey, I got a panel board over here, and we forget that the panel board is the guts, but when we get it evaluated under UL 67, it evaluates the whole thing, right? The panel board, the lugs, the terminal buses, and cabinet or enclosure that it all goes into. All of that gets evaluated in UL 67, for example. And then one that has that, it acts as one complete assembly, right? Or an enclosed panel board would be a panel board that is inside of an enclosure, that type of thing. Makes sense? Hopefully that makes sense to you. All right. What's up, Jamal? Good day. Glad to have you here. All right. Okay, let's get into talk a little bit today. Let's talk about get back into some cable trays. And so what we want to do is we kind of looked at the different wiring methods. Go watch part 1. We already covered pretty much that. We also covered industrial establishments when you're permitted to have single insulated conductors or single conductor cables. Other than that, in cable trays, you want to have what? Cables, okay? That type of scenario. So what we jumped down to is we were talking about was the number of conductors or cables in a tray. And we immediately skipped A the other day, which is talking more about the cables in there, right? We went and started just hammering away at probably what was more complicated to folks, and it is here when they're installing single conductor cables and indirectly single insulated conductors as well. Okay, so there you go, Jonathan. There you go. Jonathan says they call it breaker box. This slang they use. That is, that is one of those things that you have to be aware of. Is that even the folks that are writing exams, I can tell you right now, because I used to work on some committees that write exams, prep questions. I mean, not prep questions, but exam questions. And the collection of individuals in the room, it's like video after video I watch now. They'll be showing non-metallic sheath cable or cables, and they call them conductors. How many of you do that now when you watch a video on YouTube or one of these other platforms? I mean, come on. How many of you watch what they say now after you've been here with me for, who knows, some of you have been following me for years, and you see some of the things that people say, and you realize, like, they'll look at something, say, like sub panel. You've got the collection of people that'll literally go ape shit when people say sub panel, because they'll go, there's no the word sub panel. There is one reference to sub panel inside of the NEC, I think, but it's not basically for what me and you know it is, right? So it is basically a remote distribution panel, a remote load center, service enclosure, feeder panel enclosure, circuit box. You get all this slang, and again, you as the electrician, especially when you're taking an exam, have to realize that some people that even write these exams are good old boys too, right? And so they will write questions, and it gets accepted in there. And you got to remember the people with like Promisor or Prometrics or PSI, they're not experts. They're not code experts. So they're relying on the people that are in the room to write the questions. And so if everybody's calling it a breaker box or calling it a panel box or whatever they call it, then it might end up in a question. And you have to be able to discern that and distinguish what they're talking about. Whether or not we're talking about a panel board, which typically gets mounted in a cabinet, you're going to be looking at 312. Whereas you're going to have device box, switch boxes, things like that are going to be over in 314. And you gotta, you know what? It's incumbent on you to be able to distinguish it by even reading the question. And again, are you going to encounter really poor questions? Yeah, you are. You're going to get some questions that are like that's just a crap question. But you're going to have to answer it and move on and not dwell on it. And I realize that not one question on an exam, not one or two questions, is not going to make and break you. I get calls from people all the time that say, you know what, Paul, I failed the exam by one question. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. I mean, technically you did if you got a 69 and you needed to get a 70 on a 100-question exam and each question was worth 1 point and you missed 31. Yeah, but in reality, you have 31 other questions that you could have got right. So you didn't really fail it by one. I mean, technically you did, but as far as knowledge, then what happens is when you talk about knowledge, you missed a lot of questions, a lot. So I have a lot of students that will dwell, for example, will dwell on that one question they got wrong. And I try my best as an educator to say, you know what, let's move past that because you got a lot more wrong than just the one that you're hung up on. So it's a mental state. You have to get past it. And then most students will get past it and realize that the best way I had one guy who was literally failed his exam and he thought it was because he missed something on a motor question. And it took me forever to try to convince him to get off of the motors. Just learn the basics of the motors. Learn how to do short circuit ground fault protection in 430.52. Learn how to size the conductors in 430.22. Understand that if you have multiple motors, that you have 430.24, largest motor at 125%, and the sum of all the other motors based on the FLC. Overloads 430.32, focus on that. Using the nameplate, focus on that. Everything else in there is a lookup question. You can find it, right? So at the end of the day, I tell people let's not get bogged down in one question. So I know it sucks for anybody out there that's taken an exam and failed it by one or two questions. All I can tell you is it doesn't make you feel better, but you failed it by more than just one or two. You failed it by a lot. Okay. And I always like to ask people ask me, how long should you study for an electrical exam? The minimum amount of time that you should be studying is 3 months, really. So if you waited until 2-3 weeks before your exam to start studying, I pray that you pass, and I hope you pass. You know what I'm saying? I do. I hope you pass. And if you didn't buy a program, I always am going to hope you pass. I mean, that's what we're here. We're wanting everybody to succeed. But we created the structured process, not reinventing the wheel, but we created the structured process simply because it's the right way to study. And I think that was the number one problem is people don't study right. You can't remember quick little snippets. You can't commit everything in the code to memory. You just have to put in the time. That's it. Okay. All right. So let's get back to where we're at. Okay. So we were going to finish these out. So this is the one we talked about yesterday. Okay. So make sure you go watch that video. Okay. If you did not catch it yesterday, go watch it. Don't leave now, but go watch it when you were done. Okay. Now it says, now these are for ladder or ventilated trough cable trays. Okay. I think I said trough or something yesterday. I don't know what the hell was in my mouth, but trough, like in the opposite of Rolf, trough. Okay. Anyway. All right. So this is only for ladder and ventilated trough. Okay. So it says where ladder and ventilated trough cable, and these are the most popular, by the way, contain single conductor cables, and by virtue of 392.10, where applicable, single insulated conductors. Okay. So it says the maximum number of single conductors shall conform to 392.22 B1A through, okay, B1D. Okay. So we looked at this one yesterday. So we're not going to go over C anymore. That's yesterday. Okay. What is Ronald says, what do you do when the test conditions are not right? Computer defect, lights. Ronald, are you talking about during the testing phase? Well, I would definitely complain to the test center. And they're going to, again, remember that that's always going to be subjective because they could turn around and say, well, it's enough light. Nobody else has complained. You know how that goes? Probably not going to change your score. They're not going to change your score for that. States never admit that for anything. So, I mean, it's one of those things that you just have to be willing to adapt. I would never go in, for example, without my reading glasses or my glasses, those type of things. But again, you can complain before the test starts. If you don't have enough light, you could complain, see what they say, that type of thing. But if you take the test, you turn it on, okay? I don't think you can bring your own light. I don't think they'll allow that. You have to contact your test center. They'll tell you what you can, but most of them won't let you bring anything in there but your code book, that type of thing. Oh, speaking of that, before I get started, I don't usually make recommendations. I usually don't. I'm not a recommendation kind of guy. And I have found some errors in here with all due respect to Frederick or Fred. There are some things in here. If I was recommending a book for folks and you wanted a good learning book, this is not the NEC that's published by NFPA. This is the McGraw-Hill. This is published by McGraw-Hill, and it's Frederick Hartwell. This book is available on Amazon. I am not an Amazon seller, so I'm not going to give you a link. I just got this handbook. Now, Fred is wrong in here when it comes to cable trays. When it comes to the lesson that we did yesterday, he's wrong. He wouldn't be wrong in the field because it would be bigger than necessary. But he is wrong in his approach in how he does it, okay? But anyway, I would say 99% of the time, this book is a great resource for folks. You can get it on Amazon. Again, it's McGraw-Hill. It's, I don't know, $100 or whatever. I told you, I always invest. I just got it. I'm always investing in books for my library, and I'm not a collector of old code books. Okay, people ask me, "Do you have a code book from 1930?" No, I'm not a collector. I don't live in the past. I'm always moving in the future. And plus, I can get everything on electronic anyway, and there's no reason for me to go back and look at something from 1930. I'm not a historian, so I don't give people send me stuff and they go, "Paul, can you tell me when this code changed back in 1940s?" And my response to that is, no, I'm not interested in that shit. Okay, it's just not me. Okay, but I always like to get it, and I got Fred's book, and I'm reading it. And there's some things I agree with. There's a few things I disagree with, but that's educators. We all disagree from different things. But for the most part, it is a great resource for people. Great resource for people. Okay. And like Fred, like me, like Mike, like us, we don't know it all. We're always learning. That's a beautiful thing. Okay. All right. So let's knock out each one of these. Okay. So again, remember we're talking about ladder and ventilated trough cable trays, probably the most popular other than solid bottoms and things like that. So, and number one, it says where all of the cables are, and remember here, folks, we're talking about single conductor cables, but it is also going to be applicable to single insulated conductors, okay? It says where all of the cables are 1,000 kc mil or larger, it says the sum of the diameters of all single conductor cables shall not exceed the cable tray width. So this is the one where we're not using the values for volume here. This is the actual diameter, which is published by your manufacturer. When it comes to 1,000 kc mil, for example, you can get that approximate diameter in the code book under Chapter 9, Table 5, I believe. For THHN, but when it gets larger than that, you're going to have to go to the manufacturer and they will publish this diameter value, okay? So in that case, where their cables are 1,000 kc mil larger, the sum of the diameters, not the volume, the sum of the diameters for all single conductor cables shall not exceed the cable tray width. So your tray has to be wide enough to handle the number of conductors that you're trying to put in there, okay? That's common sense, right? Then it says, and the cables shall be installed in a single layer. Okay, so for these larger ones, it's all about the width of the cable itself or the conductor itself, and the tray interior dimensions have to be wide enough to accommodate the number of cables that you're planning on putting in there or conductors you're planning on putting in there, okay? Now, it says, now conductors that are bound together comprising each circuit group shall be permitted to be installed in other than a single layer. So what that means is if you're not installing them single, just laying in there single conductors, if you're creating a triad or a quad, okay, they're plexed together, okay, and you're creating a triad or what we call the diamond or the quad, if you're doing that inside of the tray, then obviously they can't be in a single layer because of the nature of how the conductors are plexed. Make sense? So they're okay, right, to be in there that way, okay? But doesn't mean you can stack other ones on top of them. They're just inherently, if you do a triad, you're going to have one on top, no matter how it lays, right? So that is saying that's okay. But if you plan on running just the single conductors in there, then they have to be one layer. And again, this only applies to 1,000 kc mil and larger for that one, okay? So that's a simple one, okay? Very simple. Next, B says where all the cables are from 250. Now, it keeps saying cables, by the way, because this one talks about yes, so Elwood, whether or not you're running parallels or you're running triads, where you bring in the sets together, that type of thing, it's okay. One layer if you're running them single conductors. If you're grouping them, like even if you were running parallels, if you're grouping them in triads or quads, then you can't be in one layer because there's obviously one's going to be on top of the other. So this is just giving you that allowance to say it's okay. They're saying it's all right, it's okay to do that. Now, they say cables, but we're really talking about single conductor cables. So one of my desires would be to get this changed to not say it this way, okay? Because I believe the premise of this is, again, single conductor cables. So I think that it should say this just like it does down here, single conductor cables. and single insulated conductors. But again, that was my fault. Okay, that's me not going deep enough when I submitted a lot of these code changes. So bear with me. Just take it as it is, okay? Because the premise here is single conductor cable. And it says, okay, well, if it's 250 kc mil through 900, which is obviously less than 1,000, right? Then it says the sum of the cross-sectional area of a single conductor cable, okay? So then now you're going to have to pull in what? This is not talking diameter anymore. Now this is talking the cross-sectional area. So this is your inch square values. This is the same way you would do a raceway fill calculation. You're still going to go to chapter 9 and table 5 and get your values for the approximate area, okay? Same thing. Don't confuse yourself. It's the same thing as a raceway fill, okay? And when you do that, the difference, like with raceway fill, we're looking at chapter 9, table 1, right? For raceway fill. Well, here we're not. Here we're looking at column 1 of table 392.22b1, which is right here, okay? And down here, you see right here, column 1, and this says 392.22b1b, right? And that is what we're working with, this one right here, b1b, okay? And down here, it talks about what the volume is for these different types of inside width cable trays. There's a small little 2-inch one, which primarily would probably be for data and communication, I would say. The most common would be a 12 right here, and it has a volume of 13. Okay, so you can have 13. So again, you're going to treat this the same way that we would do when it comes to a raceway fill calculation, right? Pretty simple, that type of scenario. So here, so it's 13. So nothing complicated about that. All you got to do is go and find out what the approximate area of the conductor is, right? And then, or you could take this down here, 13, and you could divide that by the approximate area of, let's say, a 250 kc mil conductor, okay? And do that, and it'll tell you how many of those can go in that tray. Now, again, we're just talking about how many we can get in there when it comes to the width and not exceed this value right here if we were doing a 12-inch inside width cable tray. It's that simple. It goes all the way down to 36, okay? And you have some additional examples down here that we would look at. And by the way, this is the exact table that we used yesterday. The only difference is that we're using column 2 for our example right here from yesterday, where we have 2 different sizes in the same tray. If you're thinking, well, go over that one, Paul. We want to learn that one today. No, go watch yesterday, because I spent all day yesterday explaining that. Okay? Not going to do it again. Okay? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. All right. Now, D. D says where any single conductor cable are 1/0 through 4/0, okay, it says the sum of the diameters of all single conductor cables shall not exceed the cable tray width. Now, in this scenario here, again, it is not using what? The value from approximate area, okay? This one's talking about the diameters. Where do you get the diameters? Well, you can get the approximate diameters for these sizes by going to chapter 9, table 5. You'll see there's approximate area, and then on the right side, there's approximate diameter. But you can also get this information, and you should remember this and utilize it, not just because I work for a wire and cable company as well, but this is the job of the wire and cable manufacturer. We can provide you with these values, okay? And the diameters are going to change due to the different thicknesses of insulation, the conductor sizing, the stranding, that type of thing. You still should be the same circular mill, right? A 250 kc mill, a 4/0 or a 1/0, for example, should be the same circular mill. The stranding just may be different, that type of thing. So just keep that in mind. Also, be aware that your volumes are going to be, that might be a little different whether you're using copper or aluminum. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But that is straightforward. That is basically easy peasy when it comes to ladder or ventilated trough. Okay. Is there a weight limit on a cable tray? There probably is. You'd have the manufacturers are the ones that you're going to deal with. You contact the manufacturer, they will tell you, they will have instructions, and they will have everything listed for their cable trays. All this testing they did, the NEC is not going to get involved in that. It's just going to be something that the manufacturer will provide you, like MP Hussey. I think it is Husky, MP Husky. They will give you full information on the specs of their cable tray as a supporting system, that type of thing. Also, a lot of questions that people ask me, can I use a cable tray to support other wiring methods like boxes and raceways? Since this cable tray is there, you're thinking, can I support anything underneath it? The short answer to that is no. But the accurate answer to that is maybe, if the manufacturers give you information that show that their cable trays are listed and rated to be able to support that additional weight. And that is definitely something that you want to check with the manufacturer before you go taking a cable tray and then people start running raceways underneath it and connecting to the tray or connecting boxes to the tray. This happens. Don't just assume that I can take a cable tray and I can connect other wiring methods to it outside of the tray. That tray is designed to be a supporting component for things that go in the tray. Don't assume that I can just clamp shit onto the cable tray. Some manufacturers may have a listing that does handle the additional weight, but the manufacturers are the one that dictate that. So don't be afraid. A lot of people I find just don't want to reach out to the manufacturers. Now, I'm not sure whether it's difficult to deal with manufacturers. I can tell you if it's wiring cable. If you call Encore Wire and Prismium and you have a technical question, they're going to patch you straight to me. Really. Not my team, not other people on my team. Some companies you got to go through the gatekeepers, 4 or 5 or 6 different people. No, I am the technical guy. So again, they're an $18 billion company. When it comes to building wiring cable, I'm going to be the guy they connect you to until they don't anymore, until they get rid of me. And that's their prerogative. I'm neither here nor there if that's what they want to do. I always wonder when my last day is going to be there, since they're a much bigger company now. But at the end of the day, everybody keeps saying, do you want to lose all that knowledge of wiring cable and electrical that I bring to the company? Usually there's 5 or 6 major catastrophes a year that's associated with wiring cable, and I usually get us out of them. So again, is that worth it to you? I don't know, but I'm okay either way, but I mean, I love doing it. Okay. So anyway, okay. So there you go. So that's for that one. Now, one of the things that, let's see here. I'm going to leave that because we want to stay focused today on sizing, that type of different sizing. So I'm going to leave that there. And I'm not going to talk about medium voltage again in over 2000 volts in today's episode. We're going to leave that for some other topic. Now, let's go back up here and let's talk about right here. So let's talk about cables, okay? Because it is a cable tray after all. Now, remember what I said yesterday when it came to cable trays? I showed you a list of what could be. Oh, is that what the hog said as well? Cool. Is there a weight limit to cable tray? Oh, you searched the hog on that question and it matched what I said? Hey, that's good. Woo. Okay, the hog is smart. I will give it that. Okay, I'm just saying. Anyway, so that's a good thing, Adam. I'm glad the hog matched me. So remember what I talked yesterday? I said that cable trays are designed for cables. So we showed you the example of when you could put single conductor cables or single insulated conductors in a cable tray. That was in an industrial establishment. You and your AHJ have to work that out. If you manufacture a product, it's not just like a Walmart or a retail store or a mall or just something like that, then it's probably not going to be an industrial establishment. And then you're not going to be able to put single insulated conductors or single conductor cables inside of the cable tray. Now, can you? I mean, you can, but will it pass inspection? Maybe. there's a high probability the inspector may not understand the rules that are in 392.10. It's a possibility, and you might get away with it. But now you know, so you're responsible for doing it right. Get what I'm saying? Oh, I should mention real quick, I think we are going to get some more of these wire waffles to give away. For those that I gave some of these away, they'll be coming in the mail here shortly. But again, shout out to Wire Waffle, wirewaffle.com. They are going to send us some more of these. And I believe we're going to do a little promo video for them. We do that stuff for free for products that we feel are very innovative, and it's simple, but it solves a problem that people violate every day. And so because of that, I offer to do them a promo video and to endorse it for free. I'm not going to get paid any money. I'm not getting a paid endorsement. I'm doing it, and I do this from time to time if I believe in something. And I'd rather see people use this than bring non-metallic sheath cables through a 2.5 TA in the back of a panel or in the top of a panel. I'd much rather see you use something like this. So my hope is they come out with the 1 1/4s, the one, which you can maybe get 4 of them in the one, which ultimately could end up being 8, you know, because these are hold 2 cables at a time. That's my hope. So we'll see. They come out with that. Anyway, hashtag Wire Waffle. Sparky got it. Now, can you buy them? Yes, you can over on wirewaffle.com. They're probably not in your supply house yet, but when you go to your supply house, do the guy a favor. His name is Hunter. Go in there and say, hey, you guys need to start stocking these wire waffles, especially if you're in Arizona where you seem to want to violate the code every day. So check it out. Again, I don't make anything on it. I just believe in it. If you invent a product and I believe in it, I'll endorse it too. I don't want no money for nothing. That's bullshit. I believe in it. And I want whatever's going to work good for you, the electrician. Okay? All right. Let's get back to where we're at. Okay. So let's talk about it. So let's talk about the first one. Ladder and ventilated trough cable trays containing any mix of cables. All right, so that's what we're talking about here. So there we go. We got a bunch of them here. So the first one, these are going to be pretty straightforward. It says where a ladder or ventilated trough cable trays contain multi-conductor power or lighting cables, and again, or any mix of multi-conductor power, lighting, control, and signal. The maximum number of cables shall conform to 392.22A1A through A1C. Okay, so this is where you're going to be putting cables, any ladder, okay, which is basically a rung type of cable tray, which has the rung spaced out 9 inches, 12 inches, whatever, that rung system. Or again, the ventilated trough type of cable tray, which is basically a perforated vented type of trough. If that's what you've got, okay, that is listed, by the way, as a cable tray. Which is a supporting component, okay? And you can have and what's a multi-conductor cable? We know that's MC cables, that's tray cables, obviously. That could be, what else? AC cables, that could be any type of cable assembly, okay? SE cables were marked for use in a cable tray. Non-metallic sheet cable were marked, okay, for use in a cable tray. That's important. Got to be marked for it. Not everybody's non-metallic sheath cable or not everybody's SE cable can go in a cable tray. It's got to have those markings. We talked about it, okay? All right. So let's look at each one of these really quickly. Here's A. It says, okay, it says where the cables are 1 aught and larger, that means it has conductors inside of it that are 1 aught and larger. It says the sum of the diameter. This is the diameter of the cable. Okay, and remember, circumference is around, diameter is across, and radius is from the center out. Okay, we bend things around a radius. The diameter of a cable is from one edge to the other edge, straight across it, and then circumference is around. Okay, we just always like to make sure we lock those thoughts in our head so we're all square on what we're talking about. You like how I did that? All square around there? Anyway, all right, so where the cables are 4 aught and larger, the sum of the diameters of all cables shall not exceed the cable tray width. Okay, so here you're going to be taking, if you've got 5 cables, it's the diameter of each one. So do 5 times whatever the diameter. You could have multiple sizes in there, okay, where they're 4 aught and larger conductors inside. Then you could have one cable that's 1 diameter, another one that's different diameter, another one, but you add it all up. And first of all, the tray inside width of the tray has to be at least as wide as the summation of the diameters of the cable. Okay, does that make sense? And it says the cable shall be installed in a single layer. Okay, so they have to be all laid out. Okay. Now it says where the cable ampacity is determined in accordance with 392.80A1C, and we will look at that. Okay, so right now we're just focused on how we put them in the tray. We will look at ampacities Friday. But it says where the cable ampacity is determined in accordance with 390.80A1C, it says the cable tray width shall not be less than the sum of the diameters of the cables and the sum of the required space width between the cables. Okay, so the only reason I'll click on this one is to show you right here. So let me make sure I go back. I don't know if my back button works the same way. Hold on. No, it doesn't. I didn't think it would. All right, hold on. I got to get you back to where we're at here so you can see what I'm talking about. I knew it would happen, so it is what it is. All right, so where we're at, we're right here. So right here, so where the cable's ampacity is determined based on this configuration, okay? And what is 390.80A1C, by the way? And remember, if you're doing ampacity, and we'll talk about that tomorrow, but if the ampacity on these 4-aught and larger conductors in this tray, in a single layer, if the ampacity is calculated based on this configuration, okay, then and we'll look at this tomorrow, but again, I'll click it. So A1C, which is right here, and this is saying, look, where the multi-conductor cables are installed in that single layer in an uncovered tray with a maintained spacing of not less than 1 cable diameter between the cables. So you have a cable, then you have a space between a cable that is equal to the diameter of the cable, and then you have another cable. Then you have a space, then you have another cable, then you have a space, then you have another cable. Okay, so they're not touching. There's a space. So where you're installing them like that, then it's saying, okay, the ampacity shall not exceed the ambient temperature corrected ampacities of the cable, not more than 3 insulated conductors rated 0 to 2,000 amps in free air in accordance, okay? So when it says when we're doing this, then we're able to use the free air values in 310.17. We're maintaining spacing between cables, and we may have to take into consideration the ambient correction, but we don't have to take consideration for anything to do with bundling or anything like that inside the tray. And we're maintaining the spacing. And when you do this, we're getting permission to use a higher ampacity value based on a free air application, even though they are cable assemblies, okay? But don't worry about that. We will go over that in more detail tomorrow when we're doing ampacities. But this is basically what we're talking about, okay? So if you install them this way, so typically they have to be in one layer, right? And you're going to install them in one layer. But if you want to use the free air application and you're able to install them this way, again, this is where you've got the width of the cable separation. Okay, you're not required to do this. It is when you install them this way and you're trying to achieve the ampacity for a conductor based on this installation. That's what it was talking about, okay? And there you go, okay? I just wanted to make sure we quantified that, and we'll talk about ampacities tomorrow, so don't worry about that. But I just wanted to make sure we cover that. So again, right here, it says it has to be installed in a single layer, okay? All right? And you'll have general rules for ampacity that you'll see in 392.80 general, okay? But here it says, look, however, if you do install it this way, which is that spacing between the cables, if that's the case, then it says, you know what? If that's what you're doing for ampacity and you're laying them out and you're using the ampacity that you're going to calculate based on that laying them out that way in a tray, then it's telling you, well, the width of the tray's got to be different. And that means that the tray itself shall not be less than the sum of the diameters of the cables and the sum of that required space in between the cables. So what that means is if you're going to use a higher ampacity value for the free air rather than using the standard 310/16, again, we'll talk ampacity tomorrow. But if you're doing that, you have to take into consideration those spaces between the cables when you're deciding the overall width of your tray, right? Does that make sense? So instead of being where I'm going to use the ampacities in 31016 like normal, then those cables could be right next to each other. And you're basically, your tray is going to be the width of all of your cable diameters. However, if you're trying to achieve the free air and a little higher ampacity and you install them in a tray where you put a cable, then you space it the width of a cable, then you put another cable and you space it the width of a cable, then you put another cable, obviously that space has to take into consideration. So that means your tray is going to be bigger. That's all it's saying. Okay. That's all it's saying. All right. Okay. The next one, we'll look at B. Here's B. And it says, again, all we're talking about is tray sizes. B says, where all of the cables are smaller than 4/0. Okay, so here it was 4/0 and larger, so smaller than 4/0. Sometimes in the code, I wish it wouldn't say it this way. I guess we get it. But why wouldn't it be easier just to say where all the cables are 3/0 and smaller? You know what I'm saying? Rather than say where the cables are smaller than 4. Because if you're not paying attention and you're in an exam, it can be confusing. You know what I'm saying? Confusing. And I don't like confusion. But I'm not going to submit it. I know what to do it, and now you know what it means. But again, sometimes this can be confusing, right? Where the cables are smaller than ever. Why not just say 3/0 and smaller? You agree with me? How many of you agree? Give me a hell yeah if you agree. It would be easier to say it that way. Anyway, so it says where the cables are smaller than 4/0, it says the sum of the cross-sectional area of the cable shall not exceed the maximum allowable cable fill in column 1 of table 392.22a1 for the appropriate cable tray width. So on an exam, they're going to have to give you the cross-sectional area here. Okay? Now, it's one of those things where you could probably use a formula and if I had a cable and has 4 conductors in it, I can take 2 of the conductors and I can have, get their area, right, for those individual conductors, and then try to figure out what the volume would be for the insulation. The sheathing on the cable. No, the easiest thing here is to contact the manufacturer for this type of thing. Okay. And they will give you the cross-sectional area of this cable itself. Although there is a way that you can calculate this out. And I will show you this hold on here. Let me find this. Let's see here. Let me see if I can find this really quickly. No, hold on for a second. There is a nifty thing that I like that I go here. Let me show this to you. Just to show it to you. Let's see here. I don't know if this is the one. No, that's not it. Hold on. Let me go back to NEC. Okay, yeah, here it is. All right, so see this right here? This is available in the URL. I'll go on and copy this down in if you're interested in it. It's not going to help you on an exam, but it does have all the formulas in here. As well, that you can study and learn and all this stuff. On an exam, they're going to give you the values, the area, because again, it would be unrealistic for them to make you do any otherwise. But I'm going to post it in here in case anybody wants it. It's nifty to have. Copy and paste it. I don't know what that little thing is, little face thing is on there. I apologize. I have no idea what that is. But let me redo this again. Because that looks like a little alien on my thing. I don't know. I'll post it again. Yeah. There we go. So anyway, so this is pretty neat, right? Because if I want to find what the area is of something, right, then all I have to do is put in the diameter. So if this was let's say it was a tray cable, right, that is, say, 2 inches across the diameter, okay? Then I could put 2 in here, right? And if I put 2 in here, then again, diameter being 2, right? Not the radius, I'm putting the diameter in there, okay? So if it was, let's see here, 2.25, okay? then I've got an area of 3.97, okay? That type of thing. And it gives you circumference, it gives you that, if you put in the diameter, you can put in the area. It does everything here when it comes to a circle, and if that's what we're doing with a cable assembly. But most of the manufacturers will give you this information, okay? Just so you know, but again, right there, okay? So we have to have the sum of the cross-sectional area of all the cables, okay? So again, where it says where all the cables are smaller than 1, it says the volume of the cross-section area of all cables. Now again, we're talking multi-conductor cables here, okay? So it's one of those scenarios where we need to know what the cross-sectional area of the cable itself. So reach out to your manufacturer, and if you have specific different types of cables, that type of area, and they can give you that cross-sectional area of the cable assembly, whatever one you're dealing with, that type of thing. We will do it at OncoWire. All you do is reach out to us if you need to do that in a tray. We're more than happy to give you that information, that type of stuff. Also, we will give you the diameter of the cable, which allows you to be able to use a formula just like that. So engineers, on an exam, they're going to give you the values, okay? So again, not going to overcomplicate that on exam. And anybody that says, no, they don't, I would beg to differ, because I wrote plenty of exams and we're going to give you values. We're not going to expect you to memorize those type of things or use some overly complicated formulas for that. Okay. All right. So that is that one. Okay. And again, you're going to use column 1. So here's column 1, right? And this is the volumes, okay, for that tray. Okay. So, for example, if it was let's see here. Let's do as an example. Let me see if I can go to, let me see. Hold on for a second. Let's do this. I like doing this type of stuff. Let's go to, let me go here. Let's go to a product real quick. Hold on. Bear with me here. Let's go to cable. Let's go to cable. Bear with me, folks. I'm going to show you something here. All right, with a grab. Okay, I'm going to go to view the details. All right, let me share this screen right here. Okay, now that's probably not the best one to share. Hold on. Let's go here because I want to get full screen. Bear with me. It's coffee hour, folks. Relax. Relax. Calm down. Calm down. Let's see here. Okay, so if we were over on this website right here for this company, okay, whatever company that may be, okay, and we were over here and we went and downloaded the specs for the product right here, the spec. I'm gonna click on spec, all right, and let's see, share this. All right, here's the spec, okay, for this tray cable, okay, and I come down here. And I have some values right here. So here's the total outside diameter right here. Okay. So that's the smaller stuff. I don't like the smaller stuff. So hold on. Hold on. I don't want to, let's do this real quick. I don't want the smaller stuff. Let's get something bigger. Okay. Here, let's go right here. So here's some bigger stuff. Let's go right here. All right. So I'm going to share this one. Okay. So let's go down here. So let's just go down. Let's do here. Let's see what the code was talking about. Let's see here. Smaller than 4/0. All right. So we want to look at, here we go. So let's just say 3/0 right here. Let's go to 3/0. And it tells me that the outside diameter, okay, I'm going to write this down. Okay. You write it down too. Write it down with me. So the diameter of this in inches is right here. Okay, whether you got the 4-conductor inner or 3-conductor inner, we'll just go with the 4. And it is 1.571. So 1.571. Okay, this is my diameter right there. You see it? Outside diameter provided from the manufacturer, right? And then we'll go here and we'll just put the diameter in here. So 1.571, okay? And the area on that is going to be 1.938. Now, you only need to go to 4 places out. So 1.938, okay, would be for that cable, okay? So if we come back to the NEC, and we come down here, and you can see that I could get one of those cables in this one, right? But let's say I'm going to use a typical 12 with cable tray, which is 14. So I'm going to take that 14 and I'm going to divide that by 1.938, and that gives me 7.22. So I can't have 0.22 of cable in there, so I could have 7 of those cables inside of that 12-inch wide inner dimension wide cable tray. Does that make sense? That makes sense how we do it? Okay. So it's not overly complicated, but it's one of those things that you do have to think about it. And so when you read the code here, it's all it's saying. If they're smaller than 4/0, then you've got to come up with the cross-sectional area. Well, the manufacturer will give you the diameters, probably not going to give you cross-section area, but it's easy to do the calculation. And if you want to find that, by the way, there is, again, if I were to take you there is on this page, and I linked it for you, there is here, how to find the radius. There's the formula. How to find the diameter. There's the formula. Okay, we use this one the most. Okay, especially if we're doing elliptical cable, we use this the most. Okay, but you also will see radius. Okay, all these little tips and how to remember all this stuff. Okay, great little resource. And I put the link down in there. Use these resources. Math is fun. It's complicated as shit sometimes, but it is fun. So again, feel free to use it. Okay. All right. Back to the lesson. Okay. So that's how you do B. Now let's look at C. Now C is going to be the one that's similar to what we did yesterday. You remember? Similar to what we did yesterday, because we have to have diameters. Okay. Now that's easy because we can get the diameters for large cables and conductors from the manufacturer's product sheets, that type of thing. So it says now, where you have 4/0 and larger cables are installed in the same tray with cables that are smaller than 4/0, a la what? A la 3/0 and less, all the way down to 1/0, because that's what can be in a cable tray, right? But remember, you also can have cables that have conductors in it that are smaller than 1/0. That's just for single conductors. And that people lose sight of that sometimes too. I can have cables with conductors inside of it that are 14 gauge, 12 gauge, 10 gauge, 8 gauge, 6 gauge, as long as they're in the cable assembly. It's only the restriction to 1/0 is when it's what? Single conductor cables or single insulated conductors. That's the difference. If you didn't get that, go watch yesterday. That'll explain it. All right, now, so it says where 4/0 and larger cables are installed in the same cable tray with cables smaller than 4/0, it says the sum of the cross-section area of the cables smaller than 4/0 shall not exceed the maximum allowed fill area resulting from the calculation of column 2 in table 392.22a1 for the appropriate cable tray width. It says the 4/0 and larger cable shall be installed in a single layer. Okay, what does this mean? Well, if you remember yesterday that we talked about it for the conductors. So in your mind, just remember what we did yesterday. Keep it simple. Jesus is coming in again today. Look at that. Shining on me today. So for the larger ones, right, that are over, okay, that are 4/0 and larger, those will be done in a single layer. Those that are smaller than 4/0, you're going to have a certain area. They could be stacked. They could be, but they can't exceed the volume for that area. And that area is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller the more larger conductors you have. This makes sense, right? If they have to be on one layer, the larger ones have to be on one layer, then that's going to take up a lot of the tray. That's going to make for a bigger tray. So then what happens if you have a 12-inch tray and you have these larger ones that have to be one layer, Then you're going to have smaller ones that are smaller than 4/0. Their volumes, they're going to be filling up a volume. Okay, just like we did the raceway calculation. They're going to be taking up a volume, right? But that gets smaller and smaller and smaller the more you have bigger cables in there. Make sense? So that is what we talked about yesterday, and for the single insulated conductor, and it works the same way. Only difference that you have is that in this one, you see that the multiplier, instead of being 1.1 times the total diameter of the large cables, it was 1.1 for single insulated conductors or single conductor cables that were 1,000 kc mil and larger. With here, the multiplier is 1.2, okay? 1.2. That's the only difference. And if any of that confuses you, you can go down here in the notes and it'll explain to you, give some examples, and it'll explain what the SD means and all that kind of good stuff too. So we won't rehash this one with an example. What I will encourage you to do is go watch yesterday's video, and instead of you thinking about single insulated conductors or single conductor cables, it works the same exact way for cables. Now, the only difference here is that you're going to have to find the cross-sectional area of the cables that are smaller than 4/0. And again, we did that by getting the diameter of that cable and using the formula to do that, or you can use a calculator like I have. But on an exam, they're probably going to give you that value, that cross-sectional area, okay? Because then it's a lot more work to have to calculate it out and remember these formulas. They're not going to do that on an exam. Now, in the real world, if you're an engineer and you're designing this in the real world, then you want to make sure you reach out to the manufacturers. They will give you, or their cut sheets will give you the diameters, and you can either use the formula to come up with yourself, or you can use online calculators. We have online calculators that can do that as well in our mobile app. So make life easy for you. But you're likely not to get an exam question based on these type of calculations, okay? But now you know how to do it. And so again, and there's formulas there. Just go back to that math is fun and write down the formulas, and that will help you be able to calculate everything out, okay? And for those that missed that, I mean, there are some that probably missed it, right? I will just take you back there real quick so you can see it right here. This is, again, I put it in the link. Math is fun. There's a lot of great stuff here on this website, by the way. But here's how you calculate that, right? And how to calculate the area, okay, depending on what they give you, okay? Okay, area. If you know the radius, then you can do it by that. If you know the diameter, then you can do it this way. If you know the circumference, you can use this formula, right, in order to do it, okay? And then it even gives you some examples down here, guys. So this one happens to be a radius of 3 inches. So if calculate the area, it walks you through this formula. So again, and also if you're in areas in the country where you're taking an exam and they let you write things in your code book, you've got a lot of these blank pages in the front of your code book. It's a great place to write your formulas, write voltage drop formulas, write all kinds of stuff in there, only if you're allowed to do that, okay? So anyway, there you go. All right, so let's go on and get back to the lesson here. All right, so that's how you deal with that. Now, what about, okay, so ladder and ventilated trough cable trays containing multi-conductor control and signaling only. I'm not going to go over those. It's the same concept here. It gives you it just basically cut and dry. I do power, so I'm not going to go over the control and or signaling cables only, that type of thing. But it could be power, but I doubt it's that. But again, this one right here is what you're going to probably use right here the most of the time, okay? For your applications when it comes to cables in a tray, for those type of cables. For here, it says where a ladder or ventilated trough cable tray having usable inside depth of 6 inches or less, containing multi-conductor control and or signal cables only. The sum of the cross-section area of all cables at any cross-section shall not exceed 50% of the interior cross-section area of the cable tray. So this is an example of how we did a wire way. For example, what you think of it as a loaf of bread, and you take any cross-sectional area, okay? Then, however, whether you cut it this way or this way, it's a swath. And as long as the area, that cross-section area, does not exceed 50% of the total interior cross-sectional area for that space, then you're okay. So whatever the total volume is or the area is for that slice of bread, as long as these signal and control cables don't exceed more than 50% of that overall cross-sectional area. That's a lot. Now, you start banging them suckers in there, okay, then you may have a problem, but usually not going to be an issue with that. Now, it says a depth of 6 inches shall be used to calculate the allowable interior cross-section area of any cable tray that has a usable inside depth of more than 6 inches, okay? So it could be inside depth of more than 6, but we're going to be using what? 6 inches is for our calculation, okay? Now, what about those solid bottom cable trays? Okay, a little different. So solid bottom means you're not going to have as much airflow. You're going to have as much ventilation, right? So again, that's going to have an impact on the conductors, and it's going to have an impact on how we can put those conductors or what size of the tray or the number that we can put in there. Okay, so it says where a solid bottom cable tray containing multi-conductor power or lighting cables or any mixture of multi-conductor power, lighting, control, and signals, so they're all intermixed in there. It says the maximum number of cables shall conform to 392.22A3A through A3C. Okay, so in this case, it says where all of the cables are 4/0 and larger. Okay, again, now we're talking solid bottom now. It says where they're 4/0 and larger, it says the sum of the diameters of the cables. Okay, so we have to know what the diameter is. So go to the manufacturer, get that information off their product sheet like we just saw me do earlier. Get those values. And basically it says the sum of the diameters of all cables shall not exceed 90% of the cable tray width. And the cable tray shall be installed in a single layer. Or the cable shall be in a single layer. Okay. So in our case, whenever our cable tray width is, we have to know our total sum of the diameters. And we take the total cable tray width and we have 90%. So it can't exceed 90% of the cable tray width. Okay. So it has to allow a little room in there. Okay. So you'll have a cable tray, right? And you'll take the cable tray and you'll take it and you'll find what 90% of that is. And then the cables in there can't exceed the 90%. So basically, in layman's terms, if it was this big and you're putting cables in there, you're not allowed to exceed this much of it. You can't use the whole space. You can only do what? Not exceed 90% of the overall space, okay? Overall width, okay? So if it was 10 inches wide, then I can't exceed, my cables that go in it on a single layer, 4/0 and larger, can't exceed 9 inches of that 10 inches of cable tray. That would be not exceeding the 90%. We use 10 as a nice round number, okay? That type of sense. That's what it's saying. So that's going to give you a little room in there, okay? So that's the first thing. That's solid bottom, by the way. Only applies to solid bottom. Next, it says where the cables are smaller than 4/0, okay? It says the sum of the cross-sectional area. Okay, so now I'm going to have to be like we did before. I'm going to have to find out what the cross-sectional area is of the cable assembly itself. I showed you how we do that, how to do the math to find the area. Okay, it says, shall not exceed the maximum allowable cable fill in column 3 of table 392.22A1 for the appropriate cable tray width. Okay, so column 3 is down here. So this is, let's see here. So this is A1. So let's see, we got to look for A1. Here's A1, and we're going to go to column 3. Move us over here. And here's column 3, right here. And there you go. So if I were to pin it, let me see if I can blow this out real quick. Let's pin it just so we can see. And with the width over here, you can barely see the width right here on the left side, right? So we're looking for column 3. So we're going to lose that here. So let's go over to column 3. So there you go. So this is column 3. It only applies to that one, right? And this is the values for those different sizes of tray. So this one, just let's say this is square inches is 11, and that would be for a 12-inch width, interior width, inside width of that cable tray. Okay? So in that scenario, that one was, let's go back to the right real quick. That was 11 inches, okay? 11 square inches. So up here, when we're doing the math on that one, we go back down to where we were at, to the solid bottom, right? Where we at here? Solid bottom right here. Then it's telling us that in this case, where they're smaller than 4/0, if it was a 12 wide interiors in the inside width cable tray, then if they were smaller than 4/0, then for example, that 12, I couldn't exceed 11 square inches, okay? And I have to come up with the cross-sectional area, and we do that just like I did earlier. As long as I know the diameter, then I'm good to go. Then I can use one of the formulas to calculate what the cross-sectional area would be of that cable, and then I can easily see whether or not I'm okay within the fill, that type of thing. Does that make sense? All right. And this one is what happens if I'm dealing, again, this is another example where I've got 4/0 and larger cables are installed in the same tray with smaller than 4/0. Then it tells us the sum of the cross-sectional area of the cable is smaller than 4/0. What you just did, have to come up with the area for that cable, okay? And basically, people get confused by that. At this point, treat a cable like it's just a big conductor. So we'll give you the diameter. You could measure the diameter, okay, straight across, and then apply the formula to find the area and do it that way for the fill. But when it comes to the 4/0 and larger, you're literally going to take the diameter of it. And that's exactly what we've been doing for the other trays when we had a mixing of conductors, for example, that are under 1,000 kcmil, and for those that are 1,000 kcmil and more. And we did the same thing where we had conductors cables that were doing that. And here we're doing the same thing again. And in this case, we're doing a solid bottom tray. And it's telling us, hey, if you have a mixture of 4/0 and larger cables, and then you have cables that are smaller than 4/0, say 3/0 and less, then guess what? You're going to have to take the cross-sectional area of the ones that are 3/0, the cables that contain 3/0 and smaller, and you're going to have to take those, and you're going to have to do a fill requirement for those. And the ones that are 4/0 and larger, I want you to take the actual diameter of the cable, okay? And do the same thing that we did earlier. And so here's what it tells you. It says where they're 4/0 and larger, installed in the same tray with cables that are smaller than 4/0, which I wish they would say 3/0 and less. It says the sum of the cross-section area of the cables smaller than 4/0 shall not exceed the maximum allowable fill area resulting from the computation in column 4 of 392.22a1 for the appropriate cable tray width. It says the 4/0 and larger cables shall be installed in a single layer and no other cable shall be placed on them, okay? We've been doing this. This is not our first rodeo, okay? But just to show you what column 4 looks like, this is it right here. And see, it only references that one we just went over right there. And again, you see that the values here are different. Here, it's basically taking the actual SD, okay, which is the actual sum of the diameters, okay, right here. And you take the actual square inch value, and you'll see that this value right here, which is the same as this right here, basically is the same. And you basically subtract the actual diameters of the cables that are the larger cables. And that's going to reduce the amount of volume that you have because the larger conductors, the larger cables are taking up more space in the tray. Makes sense? I hope it makes sense. And so if we were to follow this all the way to the left, you'll see that that was an example for a 12-inch wide tray, okay? So here, just be careful. This column only applies to that. If you go over here, this column only applies to that. This column only applies to that. Okay, so remember that, and basically, it's going to send you where you need to be. So it's not brain surgery. It'll send you where you need to be, okay? All right. Let's see here. And let's see here. I'm going to save this one for tomorrow's episode because we did solid bottom, mixing of cables. Again, control and signal, pretty much the same thing we saw earlier, even though it's a solid bottom one. Okay, here is a ventilated channel cable tray. This is a ventilated, this is a very specific type of cable tray. It is called a ventilated channel cable tray, and it has its own requirements. It has its own table, okay? And we're gonna go over those tomorrow, and we'll talk about those. Here is a solid channel. This one is a ventilated channel. We'll look at a picture of those tomorrow, and then we'll go over those, and we'll knock out those last two, okay? And then we're gonna go into ampacity. So it's gonna be a great show tomorrow. We'll knock out those last two types of cable trays, those channel type, and then we'll go right into talking about ampacities for cable trays, okay? All right, so let's go over and give some stuff away real quick in the drawing, okay? Hopefully you got something out today. That's a lot of information, guys, on a morning show. I know it's early, and hopefully you did get something out of that. If I confused you, apologize. I'm not the best educator in the world, so I do my best. I got my haters out there, and if you hate me, that's okay too. I won't lose any sleep over it. All right, let's spin the wheel and see if we can't give some giveaways here. Stay tuned tomorrow for the winners video. We'll be playing throughout the day. That would be for I think you actually have this here already. So we're going to spin again for you because I believe you already have Fast Tracks 2. So let's go on and spin again. That's right. All right, Manny, you're in the drawing for the knife. Cool. That's an awesome knife. I actually have, this is what they look like, by the way, guys. Again, very limited. I don't have a whole bunch of them. And we have a new knife design coming in a different knife, but there's a little knife. See, it says electrician on it. It's pretty sweet. It is sharp as all get out. And you'll see that it has a receptacle and a lamp or a light bulb, if you wish, engraved on it. It is freaking razor sharp. I use one to open boxes, keep it on my keychain. It's got a little keychain loop. The newer ones that we're going to be getting are a little bigger. And we're importing those. Again, those are Alibaba. Yes, we are unfortunately supporting China, but is what it is. They'll probably cost twice as much now due to import. What do you think, Paul? So there you go. But there you go. So the mini knife drawing. Good job, Manny. All right, let's spin again. You're in the drawing. Good luck with that little knife. No, it stopped, Paul. Oh, thank you. I don't get many of these. I don't get many of these anymore, but Born to Plumb is appreciative of this information. Again, all of you, again, it's free. I do these morning shows. I don't expect you to give us anything or donate, but you probably buy courses and everything. But again, he's showing some appreciation over on, I believe that's on YouTube that does that, but I appreciate you. All right, so we got another knife drawing for David Carter. David, you're in the drawing for the mini knife. Now, by chance I run out of mini knives or I have too many people in there for the mini knives, although really it isn't, it's a drawing. I will hopefully maybe have the full-size knives, but I'm still creating the design. So you got to bear with me. I'm still doing the design. But these are for the little mini knives, okay? Congratulations on being in on the drawing. And again, thank you, Born to Plum. Appreciate you. Give me that donation. You can also donate over on Let's Ask Paul podcast. There's a donation link if you want to donate. All of it goes right back into the show, whether we buy lighting, cameras, all kinds of goodies. You know, JPD, you got a subscription to Fast Tracks Tube. It's an annual subscription. You go sign up on Fast Tracks Tube. If you already have that, let me know. I will spin it again for you. All right, let's give another one. When we get some more of these in, we'll put these back on the wheel because this is great for you folks to play with. Good Lord. What is going on with this knives today? I mean, hell, Okay. Anyway, knives are popular. So, Carlos, you're in the drawing to win the knife. Congratulations. All right, let's do this again. And for all of you that were here, we were over 60 people this morning, and now we're down to 39. Sorry. Couldn't hang out with me that long. You're not diehard. You're not a diehard loyalist like all of you that are still here are. John, that's a new name. John, welcome. You are in the drawing for a conductor card. Okay. So you're in the drawing for one of these. They're not the cheap little bendy ones. These are like business. These are like as thick as like a credit card, and they're metal, and they have conductor length. This is how you can tell how much wire is still on a reel or on a coil. And it actually gets very scientific in the temperatures, the ambient temperature, and you use an ohm meter, and you can figure it out. It gives you a good approximation of your length. But these are pretty cool, and these are heavy duty. We sell a lot of these online. Because it's just also got temperature values in the back that are already adjusted for you depending on where your ambient temperature is. It just gets you more accurate than just guessing at it. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Real quick, I do want to shout out. Yesterday I couldn't get it to work, and I figured out why I couldn't get this to work. And somebody said it was the case, but I've got the case on here. It's real important. It's real important. These are those NFC promo cards that we'll be doing. These NFC metal cards that we're engraving. It's real important to know where the NFC is chip on your phone. I was sitting there swiping the middle, and I know where it is. So watch this. Ready? Let's see if this works. Okay. Boom. See it right there? And of course, I have to choose which browser I want to use. So right there, it works right there, even with a cover on. So the problem was, I didn't know exactly where my chip was, okay? So that was the issue. It might be that way on your phone, so when you go to scan somebody, just take the time and try out every place on the card. It also gives you the opportunity to have a conversation with them. If you're with a customer, say, hey, I'm gonna give you something, I'm gonna do this, yada, yada, yada. You can move it around and you'll get it. I was doing the middle, and I was literally going up the side, and I was like, well, dude, you got to know where your NFC sensor is. So here you see when I do it, it works literally every time, right? Every time. And it's because you really have to know where your damn sensor is. So even with the cover on, it works, but I'm an amateur. I'm just saying. All right, so those are promos. They're going to be cool because they're going to have a coffee hour. I'm designing it, and we're going to be laser engraving it, and it's going to be very limited with coffee hour to help promote the show. And then, of course, you can share it with other people to help promote us and our products and our show. But you can reprogram it to promote your own company if you want. We don't care. Okay? It's your gift if you get that in the drawing. All right, spinning the wheel again. Hashtag win. Let's go. appreciate you, my plumber friend. H, speak of the devil, you get in the drawing for the NFC promo card. When I'm done that design, it's going to be cool. It's going to say coffee hour on it. It's going to be a neat conversation piece for you to scan people. You're helping us. So you go to supply house, or you go to another electrician and they have their phone. And you say, hey, let me put a neat thing on their phone. And you're promoting it. And we appreciate you. And you're become our good stewards of promoting our show. Get more people to watch the show and that type of thing. And again, but you can reprogram it to whatever you want. We appreciate you. All right, let's go again here. All right, last one here we'll do today. I'm going to be good stewards of your time, and I went over as I always do. I can't seem to stay within the bounds of my coffee hour. I'm going to have to change it to coffee hours. I don't know if you already have this. If you already have Fast Tracks Tube, then let us know, and we will spin it again for you. And if we leave and you tell me, that just come back tomorrow and say, hey, Paul, I've got a Fast Tracks Tube, but I already have it. Can you spin it again? I have records of it. We have records of everything, so we'll go back and check, and we'll most certainly spin it again for you, okay? But if you don't have Fast Tracks Tube, folks, you got to get Fast Tracks Tube, okay? I'm just saying, Fast Tracks Tube is a great platform. Here's what it looks like. Here's where you go to see Coffee Hour, by the way. Right here, it says Coffee Hour. Usually it's not like this. It'll be all in one row. But again, I've got the screen crushed down, so that's what it looks like. But if you click Coffee Hour, here you see this is what's running right now. And if you want to chat, you unmute it by clicking this. If you want to chat, you just click this right here, and it'll show you the chat over here on the right, as you can see. Here's your chat. Fast Tracks Tube is awesome. Thank you, Sparky. Appreciate that. All right. And so there you can close it right there. And it works great on all platforms. If you want to search for something, you just go right up here to the top. And I might want to put calculations. Click calculations and do a search. And it'll bring you back all different videos on calculations. Okay. There's our 8-hour seminar that we did. 8 hours of calculations. Whoop, whoop. Oh, by the way, we have another one of those coming up this summer. We're going to be doing an 8-hour seminar on calculations again, covering all calculation that you would need to know. So stay tuned for that. That'll be a part of our series this summer. So we will definitely have our 8 hours. It's an all-day deal. So you bring your own food, bring your own goodies, and sit in. We will take breaks. But again, it's an all immersive calculations. I go over all of the calculations that are really necessary for you to be successful in the field. Okay. It's not so much exam prep, although it obviously will cover exam prep. But you make sure you join me for that webinar. It's going to be this summer. And where is it going to be announced? It will be on our website. It'll be where we have a link that says events or webinars. You will be able to sign up there when interested. So keep checking back, although you'll probably hear me talk about a date here in the future. So Angel says, spin that sucker again. All right, so let's spin it again for Angel. Says, I don't want that Fast Tracks Tube. I don't want that garbage. Okay, I got you. All right, Angel, we gotta spin it again because you got it again. We're gonna get you something here. We're going to get you something. I'm getting dizzy. Holy crap. That wheel's really hypnotizing me. Hypnotized. All right, dude, this seems like the big popular thing to come up today. I'm going to promise you guys that there are way more on there than the knife. You see all these little things? There is way more stuff on here than the freaking knife and the Fast Tracks Tube. It is what it is. I don't control the wheel. Charlie's going to say it's rigged. I get it, but I don't control the wheel. I'm just saying. All right, folks, I appreciate you for joining me today. Hopefully you got something out of sizing. We made sense of finishing off the single insulated conductor, and we talked about cables for the various type of cable trays, whether it's a ladder or a ventilated trough. Tomorrow we'll show the channel type of cable trays. Very similar, very similar. Nothing brain surgery going on. And then we're going to end it talking about ampacities. And when you put these cables in a cable tray, what happens with ampacity? Do we use 310/16? Do we use 310/17? What do we do with them? So we're going to be talking about that tomorrow in our Friday coffee hour. And remember, tomorrow during the day, you will see the winners video, and that'll give you instructions on what to do. Okay? All right? Hey, I appreciate all of you. I try to make it fun for you, at least not boring. Code can be boring, but I appreciate you all joining me, taking the time out of your day. Look, do me a favor. Stay positive. I try every day. Sometimes I have my bad days. Y'all know I had one earlier this week. I had a bad day, but I recovered. Life is good. Life gives you lemons. You make lemonade. You move forward. We're in the best trade in the world. You know what? Some days it's hard. Some days it's easy. But again, robots are not going to replace you, my friend. And this knowledge you have over here, you're much smarter than the average person. I'm just saying, because you are. Till next time, folks, stay safe. God bless. Catch you tomorrow on Coffee Hour.